You're amazing, and I'll prove it. This is Neil, the crazy inventor here. I've been doing a series that's about science proves that what religion has taught us over the years is actually scientifically proven at this point through something called string theory. And that tells us that there are five characteristics of God, and you can go back and you can look at the different videos that I talk about that in. And there's a heaven and a hell, and there's actually 10 different realms. And one of the things that I think is pretty funny when science was trying to prove that there wasn't different realms, there was only Earth here, that when they found the different realms, they don't know which one is Earth, and I just find that kind of funny. But anyway, I also told you that with string theory, the different realms can, because they're all electrical, they cross over to one another, and they can affect one another. They can influence one another. And one of the ways that I can show this is that when my first wife was on her deathbed, I needed to call people and let them know that that she was really sick. And so this is back in 1998, and you still used address books at that time. And I have an address book, one and only one address book, and I then got it out and I started calling people. Well, one of the people that I called was my brother, who was out in Kansas City, Missouri at the time. And I called him up and he answered the phone. And if you knew my brother, you would know that he was a little unusual. And I told him that my wife Debbie was very sick, and that we didn't know if she was going to make it or not. And he started telling me a story about a book that he had read called Psychic Warrior. And I was really put back. My wife is on her deathbed, and you want to tell me about this stupid book, Psychic Warrior? And so I'm like, yo, not to be, nasty or anything, but I've got other phone calls I got to make. So just please, send good thoughts or prayers to Debbie, and try to help her as much as you can. And so I then went back to Debbie, and she went into her operation, and 16 hours later she was gone. And so I needed to then call everybody again and let them know that Debbie had not made it. So I got out that same address book and I started calling people, and I looked up my brother Terry and I dialed the number, and the operator comes on, do. That number is no longer in service. And I'm looking at my address book and I'm like, what are you talking about? I just called it 16 hours ago and I talked to him. How can it not be in service? And I'm looking through the book to see if there's any other number for Terry, and there's no other number. That's the only number I had. So I called it again, and the same thing. That number is no longer in service. And I'm thinking, this is really strange. And so he had a girlfriend at the time, and I said, well, maybe I can get a hold of her and she can tell me what's going on. So I called her up, and she says to me, well, what number did you dial? And I told her, I rattled off the number, the one and the only number that I had. And she says, Neil, you couldn't have dialed that number this morning and talked to Terry, because he hasn't had that number in 2 years. Says it's the new number's not even close. And I'm thinking, yeah, I did. I talked to him this morning. So she gave me the new number, and I dialed it, and sure enough, my brother Terry answered just like he had that morning. And I told him, said, Terry, I dialed this other number this morning and you answered. And he says, Neil, you couldn't have possibly dialed that other number and had me answer. I haven't had it in 2 years. And so because of that, I felt that something was telling me that I needed to read Psychic Warrior. And Psychic Warrior is actually a scientific program that is run by the military, where when people have a near-death experience, it appears that something, a doorway, opens to another realm. And that person who had the near-death experience is more sensitive to hearing the voices and the wants of the other realms. And the military actually have done many, not just experiments, but they've used this to try to figure out what the enemy was doing and what was going on in other parts of the world, by having people just literally sit and view through the ether what is going on. And this is another way of showing that string theory tells us that all this stuff is possible. And little by little, as we move forward, we're discovering that sure enough, like I said, I'm not religious, but I'm a very spiritual man. And that what religion has taught us about God, heaven and hell, the other realms affecting this realm, and us affecting the other realms, along with the other things that I've spoke about. Psychic Warrior really cemented that and helped me immensely when my wife died, and there was a lot of other things that happened at the same time. And so I felt that something wanted me to read that book, and I did. I highly recommend it. It is written by David Morehouse, and he was actually one of the Psychic Warriors, and one of the very best, to tell you the truth. And it's a fascinating book, and it will give you some insight into spirituality and a better way of grasping it in a scientific way. This is Neil, the crazy inventor, trying to spread goodwill and to let you know that people are absolutely magnificent. Some of us are angry and upset, and we don't act quite right, but deep down, each and every one of our spirits is absolutely beautiful. And that's what I'm trying to teach through You're Amazing and I'll Prove It, as well as through string theory, that science is teaching us these things. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
To learn more about Neil G. Brownell's book, You're Amazing and I'll Prove It, click on the link below. If you like this video, please hit the like button and hit subscribe to get more You're Amazing videos.
You're amazing, and I'll prove it.